Hey, Sox fans, welcome back to Hot Takes and Heaters. This is the MLB centric portion of the Future Sox world, and what a few days it has been for those Future Sox. James Fox and Ian and Elijah, so many people doing great work with this fine little establishment we get to call home. And boy, busy Sox. I'm confused what the Sox have been doing, but I'm kind of a novice. Hopefully Danny Miller can shed some light on it. We'll talk through it. Jump in on the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what the Sox have done with the draft. The Sox crawl really to the All-Star break as the All-Star game is going on as we record. But so much to get to about our beloved White Sox. With me, as always, Mr. Danny Miller. Hello, Danny.
Hello, Nick. How are you, man? I got my hands full at the moment, buddy. I'm not gonna
Yeah,
lie.
yeah,
We
yeah.
Let me see if we
There
can
you
get
go.
her in
Oh,
there.
look at that right there. The
So we have the newest addition to the Miller household here, little
yeah.
Miss Nugget,
Wow.
who's now snorting in your ears on the microphone there, as Frenchies do. I'm gonna send her off with her mama though, because she's gonna
Yeah.
be a little pain in the booty. But yeah, man, I'm just sitting here, watching this All-Star game, and
Yeah.
I'm sure as everyone here on the podcast tonight and in the chat is rooting for the American League because, as we all know, as the White Sox go barnstorming their way into the playoffs here in the second half of the season, we need them to have home field advantage for the
Of
World
course.
Series, correct?
Yeah. I wanted to ask you a all-star game question. The big topic is the jerseys, and that there's these custom jerseys which happen in the NBA and for the Pro Bowl and for the NHL All-Star game. And I think it's because obviously all the players mixed in, and you kind of need some separation to figure out who's on what team. And boy, you and I grew up with those players for an MLB All Star game wearing their jersey, from whatever team. And I think there was a tease maybe that Rob Manfred might consider bringing back that look next year, but I don't know, man. It's such a money grab, of course, for churning out these All Star Game jerseys and the caps and everything. And I don't think much of them. But what say you? Would you like to go back to each player wearing their home jersey?
uh, I mean, I don't know. I kind of like some of the All Star jerseys, and then some of them, and I just feel like have been atrocious over the years. So
Yeah,
I'm kind of on both sides of the fence of this one. There were years where you remember, like we're watching teams now where they've got these all star caps
yep,
that they have the team logo on them, but they're all the same color as the jerseys and the same layout and out and look. But in years past, the caps at least were almost like genuine, in season team worn caps that kind of separated players from each other and what teams that they played for. I wouldn't mind going back to that, but to be honest with you, it's just another game, in my
mm,
opinion.
hmm,
Uh, I don't really care what they wear, to be honest. And maybe that's just because we're Sox fans and we probably don't expect a whole lot in the way of all stars over the next couple of seasons. So
Danny, what you're sounding like is me with this whole, poll that went out for announcers, and everybody hot and bothered and hating Schriffen once again, now in poll form. And I'm like, what does it matter? The organization's a mess. The team's the mess. The front office, everything else is a mess. I mean, I don't care. So Schriffen's bad. So the announcers are not to your liking. I mean, there's more things to really get irritated about.
yeah, agreed. I you and I both have been trying to give John the benefit of the doubt all season. I'm starting to kind of walk that back a little bit, but the fact of the fact, I mean, he's just some of the things he's done. I'm like, please,
Yeah.
He could all he's got to do is tweak some things.
I'm telling.
I keep saying you're going to have the moment where there are going to be some times where the excited push for a call
Yeah.
is going to be it's going to be called for, and right now is
Yeah.
not that time. So just dial it back a little bit, get excited a little, and then put it away.
I've said it before. He reminds me of early DJ when Darren Jackson was on the TV call replacing Wimpy in the booth with Hawk, which I'm sure Hawk did not make it easy at all coming in. DJ just did not have a natural. He kind of stumbled over phrases and words, and it was not an easy listen, especially when you for a decade had Wimpy and Hawk, which they finished each other's sentences. It was wonderful. I mean, that was a soundtrack of growing up in the summer with Rooney and Farmio on the radio. But and from what I've listened to DJ over the last few years, and again, a lot has to do with it with your partner. DJ's gotten a lot better. Again, it's taken maybe 20 it's taken maybe 20 years or so, but
Now,
he's gotten a lot better.
somebody got him hooked on the devil's lettuce. I think it calmed him down a little bit. At least that's been the claim for years. Is he looks like he's stoned or he sounds like he's
Sure, very
stoned. I don't
droopy
know.
eyed. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it definitely there's definitely been some adjustment in his
Yeah. Yeah.
in-game calls. So
All
I
right.
don't know.
Well,
Again, I'm still willing to give John the benefit of the doubt. It's a learning process. He doesn't, I feel like the Sox may have missed an opportunity by hiring somebody who knew the team, maybe who'd been doing some pre and
yeah.
post game shows
Oh,
on the
yeah.
radio. There
Yeah.
was a lot of folks that thought
Yeah.
that, you know, maybe, just maybe, a local guy with local ties and a know of the team would be better. But
But
John's
nobody
he's
wanted him.
perfect.
Everyone
Yeah.
thought Connor was just vanilla and, he's just kind of, he goes through the motions, nothing excitable. But you didn't have too many excitable options. That was just kind of the White Sox way. So of those, I was pulling for Connor just because he was familiar with the team and had been around the organization. He could speak like a Sox fan. Sox fans, I thought, would believe him. And okay, you're kind of one of us. You've been through all of this, and I thought there would be it would be smoother. Again,
Well, when you sit through seasons and seasons upon seasons of
yes,
Leury Garcia starting,
yeah,
as your so-called utility man, but getting more starts than just about anybody else on the team, and you've got to do those calls not on TV but on the radio.
sure,
You can't blame Connor for what he sounded like.
no,
It is what it is, man. Like
yeah.
I said, I'm going to give John the benefit of the doubt. It's a tough season all the way around, and he's got a tough job.
I hope, and to each their own, I hope when we as fans, as Sox fans, look back on 2024, hopefully years down the road when we are back to some winning ways, I hope people don't fixate on, oh, yeah, that Schriffen was just so bad. I hope we talk about how bad the development was, how bad the roster was, how bad things went from ownership down, and how
I'd rather
tough
be
it
talking
was.
about how much of a turnaround there's been
Well, that's the other
since
case.
since
Look
those
at you,
down
Mr.
times.
Positive.
Hey,
I
listen,
hope like in 5 years, yeah, we are saying, okay, wow, that was a forgettable year and everything did turn around. That's a good point.
there's a path. There's a path. It's whether or not the White Sox choose that path. I've been saying it all
Well,
season. Like, this does not have to be a long rebuild. I am on the boat of this thing can turn around in 2 years if
all right, well,
done
I'm gonna.
correctly.
Okay, well,
And
we're gonna
we'll
try
go
to
through that, but
flesh that out a little bit because the draft has a lot to do with that and what the Sox have
does
done
indeed some.
over the last few days. Talking about train wrecks, Sox finished the first half 27-71, 44 games under 500, 32 and a half games back in that forgiving AL Central with a run diff of minus 177. Of course, Sox are absolutely the worst team in all of baseball, and they're historically bad. I don't think any team in history has crawled to the break with 71 losses like our beloved White Sox have. So
First ever.
if you're going to be bad, you might as well be the absolute worst at it, and that's where the Sox are trending right now. Our only all-star is Garrett Crochet. You all probably watched him throw his inning of work in Tuesday night's game. He looked pretty sharp. He was, of course, the big draft pick in 2020. We saw him almost immediately, and we saw him in the playoffs. A big lefty. The Sox have been known to go after lefties. You look at the history of Rodon and Sale and of course, Crochet, but Schultz. And so with the draft on Sunday, Danny, Sox had the number 5 pick. And by now, everybody has combed over and read all about Hagen Smith, a dominating, nasty left-handed pitcher that falls right in line with what the White Sox have done, what they develop. It's like when you have a type, you go after something. I'm going to come out right from the beginning here. Were you shocked and surprised with Hagen Smith? And then were you happy with it at number 5 for the Sox?
All right. So I guess I'll start with the first part of that question and say, I guess I was 100% shocked, as I think most of us were. There's a handful of people on Twitter that I know had put it out there that they saw it coming, and they have the tweets from months ago to back that up. But most of us thought the Sox were going to go really bat heavy in this draft, or at least in the first round. They were going to try to get one of the top bats in the draft. And when they drafted Hagen Smith, a lot of us kind of went, "What? Like, okay." But to be upset about it, no, absolutely not. I'm not upset. He is a big lefty. He's a power lefty. My only concern with him is that he's got 2 really, really good pitches, and then his third and fourth pitches in his arsenal kind of fall off. I would like to see him get a third pitch working a lot better. But I mean, it's the White Sox organization. We can make the joke that they teach everybody a cutter, right? And I think I kind of made a reference to that in the FutureSox podcast when they were covering the draft. Ian and James the other night about he's going to throw a cutter that induces a lot of ground balls. So I'm not real concerned about him. As funny as Ian says it right in the chat. Banner will get him sorted. Bannister will get him sorted. I wouldn't worry about it. And I'm pretty much in the same place. I do believe this is a move to probably make a replacement for Garrett Crochet. Here in the future. Do I expect to see that replacement come out and be Garrett Crochet right away? Probably not, but we will probably see him sometime in 2025, and hopefully his development, kind of cascades and he turns into Garrett Crochet at some point rather quickly.
Trey, thank you so much for jumping
Okay.
in and for the question.
Super chats are live, guys.
Yeah. What is the direction, and is there one? Is Trey's question, and that is the question. I mean, the direction. It seems right now, for me as a Sox fan who just is again not in the weeds with prospects in the draft and everything that goes on, but I look at it honestly, Danny, is like what you had just kind of mentioned. They're drafting to replace guys that they're going to be saying goodbye to. And because they seemingly can't develop or, just for whatever reason, a bat position player, they go with their comfort and they just continue to stock up on pitching. I don't know a timeline. I don't know, where are you going to get the bats? How is this offseason going to go?
I think we start seeing the bats before the offseason.
Is Hagen Smith somebody we're going to be saying goodbye to in 4 years? I mean, Garrett Crochet, 2020, okay, drafted in 2020. Here we are, the summer of 2024, and it's like, okay, what are we getting for him? It's not even like if he's going to be gone. It's just like, what are we getting for him? And to me, the sign of Hagen Smith coming is not necessarily, oh, you got to grab the best possible guy at number 5. It is we need a draft because we're going to have to rebuild and restock the machine, so to speak. It's a foregone conclusion.
Yeah. And I'll start by saying this in reference to Trey's question. There is a direction, and I think there's more of a direction than, we're just going to go out and do what we know we're good at. I.e., drafting and developing pitching, especially lefties. They just seem to have a knack of doing that, but there's more to it than that. And I think the direction is, number one is, we talked about this in the offseason, how numbers have been added to the development system. There's been numbers just added in the organization as a whole. Um, you might not find a whole lot of names. You might not find guys listed under departments, but we've got it under pretty good authority that bodies have been put in place to kind of help some of these directors and coaches further development of players. And I think what the Sox are looking at doing is, number one, uh, they're going to trade at this deadline for bats. There are going to be bats involved in this deadline. So if you got somebody like Garrett Crochet who's going to go away, they're going to be looking for a package that includes at least a fairly impactful bat, I would say, somewhere in that package. Same thing with Luis Robert Jr. You're not going to trade away your single most impactful bat on the baseball team and not get something of extreme value back in return. Uh, and I think that's where it starts. And then the other part of that question is if you look at the rest of this draft class, we can't think that the only guys that are going to hit the ball are in the first round. You look, everybody's talking about George Wolkow for the White Sox right now. And he was drafted in what, like the 10th or 11th round last year? Somewhere seventh at least. I don't remember. He was further back in the draft somewhere. You know what I mean? And now the whole world is talking about how this big kid who's going to come out and demolish balls. And I can tell you right now, seventh. Thank you, Ian. There are bats in this draft. Ian brought it up in a conversation between you and I earlier. I'm really big on Nick McLean. Yes, he's had injury history, hammates and backs, and he's got a few things that have been going on. But when this guy's healthy, he's cruising. He's crushing. The guy that was drafted right behind him, Soak, another guy, just super impactful bat. Although he played a little bit in the Coastal Carolina League, where uh, Wood Bat League, and he did struggle a little bit, but it was only 23 games. So I wouldn't be shocked to see these guys. They both have big power potential. So
And that's
it's
and that's exciting and promising, and kind of going in the same theme of last week. And I hate to put you on the spot, and we might not even come up with a clear answer. Maybe folks in the chat can jump in. But in terms of bats, I'm trying to think about a bat that was highly touted, was oohed and awed in the farm system, that came up to the major league level, and just, I'm not saying there weren't bumps here and there, but really crushed it and was an impactful player for the White Sox rather quickly. You got to go back years and years, right?
Yeah, you do. And again, I think I'm going to go lean back on number one, Mike Shirley, being in charge of the scouting department now, and going out and just no, he knows the players, it seems like, to be able to pull the most out of without having to develop them much, right? It just seemed to work out that way. If we go back to 2020, his first draft, we are seeing a direction where not only are pitchers are developing, but there are a lot of bats developing too. And I see in the chat here, Clutch Hattrick says Colson's struggling and Gonzalez looks mediocre. Gonzalez, again, Colson started out really slow. So if we're just looking at the numbers, it doesn't look great. But in the last month and a half or so, he's starting to, look a little bit better. Is he looking like he did dominant, early on in his minor league days? No. And the thing is the guy climbed a bunch of levels in a really quick period. And he's still way younger than just about anybody else in AAA. So Colson Montgomery, he needs time and he's not ready. Jacob Gonzalez, another guy, was just drafted last season. Like, give him a break. He's another one of those guys they took a little bit of a chance on, but he looks not too bad. And you look at Brooks Baldwin, who's absolutely mashing, and he wasn't a guy who was drafted into, as a top bat early in a draft either. And he's doing things as well too. So I think they're recognizing talent better, and I think that's really where it all starts.
And I'm just playing devil's advocate, and I will from time to time, just because I think, honestly, I am a little jaded and a little cynical, and I'm trying to
Aren't we
change
all?
that way, But speaking of Shirley, this is what Mike Shirley had said before the draft. It's always important to know where your organization stands. You have to know where your strengths and weaknesses lie, where you're really good at development, what you feel good about. But I don't think any one draft defines a major league team, nor should you draft based off of what your major league team needs. You have to be prepared in multiple directions. I I hate to say it, but I disagree with that. And maybe you can help me if you agree with that, maybe you can help me understand it. I feel like when you look at the needs, and they've been drastic needs, that the Sox have, from right field to second base to, just bats. We need offense. And there was offense there at number 5. Okay. And when you bring in a pitcher, to me, you bring in Hagen Smith, honestly, like I said at the beginning, because Crochet's gone, and you are looking at just a piece to fill things out and flesh things out in a couple of years. So I disagree with Mike Shirley said, and I know you have got a lot of respect for Shirley. What did you think of those comments? And can you defend it, or do you kind of have your eyebrows raised a little bit?
I go both ways on it a little bit. I think it's more about, Hagen Smith. Yeah, when we talk about him as a replacement for, trading away Garrett Crochet, I don't think that I don't think he's going to be as impactful as Garrett Crochet is right now, right out of the gate. But I do see a path where he can be pretty impactful not far after that. I do think that we see him sometime next year. I think the reason he was drafted as early as he was in the draft by the White Sox, and the reason the White Sox went away from a bat early on, is because he is close to major league ready. He only needs a little bit of polishing. Maybe they get him that third pitch working, and once that happens, he's probably pretty close to ready to go. That being said, the direction it seems to be that, if you look at it, and James brought this up the other day in a tweet, the last 5 drafts have gone left-handed pitcher, shortstop, left-handed pitcher, shortstop, left-handed pitcher since Shirley has taken over in the first round. So there's definitely a direction on how they think they need to do things. And they're looking, for some reason, they're looking at infield bats early rather than outfield bats. I don't know why. But there are some statements that I'm just going to leave alone in that, because
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know, and I don't
Yeah.
really know how I feel. It's more of, I want to see where these guys are at before I say anything. But I am giving Mike Shirley the benefit of the doubt. But there's always the prospects or suspects thing, and until we see more of it come through the system and make its way to the major league roster, I don't really know.
There's just it's the frustration, it's the fan frustration. I like to say I come from a fan centric point of view. I'm not an expert. I don't have credentials. I'm not in there in the locker room interviewing people, like putting together puff pieces or, op-ed stuff or People Magazine type of portfolios of, who players are and what's going on. I'm just from a fan, just from the frustration. And it's like, great, you got guys that might be mashing and, in the farm system, but hey, the track record hasn't been good lately. The last rebuild was horrible. We heard about guys mashing, and wait till these guys get up and put on a White Sox uniform at 35th and Shields. So that's where I'm at. Does that mean it's hopeless and it can never happen? Absolutely not. But I keep going back to the prove it to me. Like I will wait. So if we're going to get bats at the deadline, I don't want just like these guys that are like 17, 18 years old that have this great upside that maybe, if this and hits, we might get to, I need like proven bats. I need ready to go bats in the next year or
Yeah,
so. You know what I mean?
and I feel you. And again, I feel like that's going to happen. That's going to happen through this trade deadline. And I'll put it to you like this. So Ian says here in the chat, the best player available was taken at that point. And I'll have to agree. Was it an absolute need for the White Sox? It's the question of drafting. Either are we drafting position of need or are we drafting best available player? And I think they did take a best available player when they took him. But if we look at what we're expecting to have on the roster next year, like Yohan Moncada to be gone.
Gone.
I'm pretty sure Eloy Jimenez is going to be
Gone.
gone.
Absolutely.
And Garrett Crochet, it sounds like, is going to be traded at the deadline. Hopefully, they do not screw the pooch on that trade and just take something because they feel like they got to get this done. But it sounds like he's going to be gone at the deadline. And if not, he's probably going to be gone in the offseason. Same thing with Luis Robert. If they can't get something done at this deadline, he's going to be gone in the offseason. So the payroll, if that happens, those four guys are gone, is going to be projected between $40 and $50 million. And that is the projections I see include like arbitration numbers, which
Do
there
you know
ain't a
how
whole
many
lot of guys
Nicky
on this team.
Lopez's you can get with that money, Danny? That's man,
Well, see,
we're
now
gonna
I
be
know everybody wants to
stacked.
say Jerry Reinsdorf doesn't want to spend. But, if we could you start out with $40 million and you can add another 80 to 100 and still only have $140 million roster, you're still middle or lower of the pack in baseball as far as spent money on the roster on players. You can probably sign some pretty good free agent bats. Do they have to be Juan Soto's? No. Do they have to be Bryce Harper's? No, you're not. You don't have to sign a 3, 4, $500 million man. You can probably find some decent $100 million guys for a few years and to fill out some holes.
If you have money though, and that's where I keep going back to the fans' perspective of if you've got the money, where are the impactful players? When will you start bringing in impactful players? When will you spend at the top of a free agency class? If you're not going to retain your own all-star talent, when will you spend and bring in all-stars? Because if you give up Crochet and Luis Robert, both all-stars, okay, like when will you be actually bringing back all-stars? Or are you just hoping that the farm system hits, and that we could do this all over again and have this conversation in 5-6 years? I get it, man. There could be some money. We played this game before. Just then to me, they would really earn like a lot of my trust back is if they went to the top of free agency class with their money. And again, okay, you're not going to bring in multiple superstars, but I want them to look at, top of pitching and hitting especially and say, hey, we've got the money to do it. We understand what's going on. This time's different.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've said it before. I'll say it again. I feel like they're pretty strong pitching wise, and they just drafted like 43 more pitchers in this draft. So who knows where all these guys are going to go? There's a handful of guys that need to graduate in the minors from class to class right now, and from low A to high A and high A to double A and beyond. I mean, it's kind of it's nuts to see and even try to think about where all these guys are going to go. But if you look at what's going on in Birmingham and then some of the guys that have graduated to Charlotte as far as pitching goes, I've said it before. I'll say it again. There is a really solid starting rotation. Even without Garrett Crochet, there's a solid starting rotation in the minor league system that I think you're going to see in the next 2 years. There's plenty of bullpen guys that are going to be really good for this team in the next 2 years. Better than what I'll be honest with you. I'd be happy if they rolled out all of these guys in the bullpen right now, get rid of them and bring up all the guys you think can pitch out of the bullpen right now so that everybody can see that. But the bats are always the question. And is Jerry Reinsdorf going to spend the money? And one of the things I see in the chat right now is talking about this new TV deal. And
Yeah.
I absolutely hate that excuse for things being questionable. And I'm just going to say this right now. I don't believe for 1 minute that anybody in the White Sox organization, in the Bulls organization, the Blackhawks organization is worried about what kind of revenue the TV deal is going to bring in. Otherwise, they would have not gone off and started their own record like or network like Marquee did. You know, that whole Marquee thing was a debacle. It took them forever to get signed by somebody, but they did, and they're making money, and they're making plenty of money. And I don't think Jerry Reinsdorf ever would make a bad investment when it comes to something like that. This isn't his first go round when it comes to TV deals and networks, so he
So
knows
you
what he's
think that's
doing.
just an excuse? That's an easy
It is.
fallback of,
It is.
well, we've got this impending labor situation and we don't know about the TV stuff. So, and that's what they're going to pitch to fans maybe this offseason if it's quiet.
Yeah, I think that's. I think it's all smoke and mirrors. I really don't believe that that's any kind of an issue. I think most of that is driven by the media. By the way, not much of that is really coming out in the team. I mean, you might hear people talk about it, but they kind of just throw it out there real quick and bury it.
Yeah.
It's it's an excuse, and
A lot of
the
excuses.
fact that they're bringing Sox Fest back this year. You and I talked about this a couple weeks ago. And I really want to know, like, do you really honestly feel like they can bring Sox fans back, roll out the 2005 team, and not have some kind of impactful move made that makes this organization look better in the eyes of the fans?
I think
Do you
we as
honestly believe that?
fans, I hear that question, I'm honest. I'm telling you, Danny. I think you roll out the 2005 in almost its entirety, Ozzy, everybody, and it will light a fire under the fan base, especially of a certain age that remembered that was like they were able to comprehend that team and they could go right back to that memory because it's going to be, I think, a long, cold off season as it traditionally has been for the White Sox. And, I know I can sometimes have a short memory when something like that happens. Like I'm a sucker for the nostalgia. I am. I'm a sucker for those types of anniversary years. You bring back the '83 team, you bring back the '93 team. You highlight, some of the, the amazing things that a few, I should say, amazing things that have been happening in the franchise history. I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff. Now, I don't speak for everybody, but I think there is a strong enough collection of Sox fans that will say, you know what, we're going to be bad for a while. We could celebrate this weekend, and we could celebrate the '05 team. We're back to Sox Fest, rubbing shoulders with other like-minded Sox fans. There will be anger, and I bet you they do away with a lot of the question and answer stuff, and they just do more panels of the '05 team, and they just completely, smoke and mirrors. Let's not think about like what we're doing or not doing. Let's just celebrate this 20th anniversary. I honestly think that could be the recipe for success in terms of winning a lot of fans back. Now, when
I
it's
mean, I can
over,
see it, but
Danny, when
there's
the
always
weekend's
media
over,
availability.
yeah, but once that weekend's over, I think that's when fans will be like, okay, that was fun. The excitement's, worn off. And then you start getting into spring training. You're like, well, wait a minute. Wait a second. We didn't do anything. We didn't do anything with this team. Are we in for another 100 loss season? And that's when there's going to be more anger and, frustration.
Yeah, I mean, I see your point, but I'm looking at, the off season really starts to get rolling right around, Thanksgiving time. And then we get into the first uh we get into the first like week of December when you get to the GM meetings, right?
But what did the Sox
And
do, Danny, aside from signing Mike Clevenger the last couple of years like he was
well, that's
white
what I'm
hot?
saying.
And,
That's exactly my point. Is like Sox Fest doesn't happen until January,
late January.
right? Late January. So if you're gonna roll through the GM meetings in early December and get into the hot stove period and nothing's happening, and then you're just gonna roll fans in for Sox Fest for a weekend of the 2005 Sox and the 20th anniversary of the World Series. Like, I just don't buy
Okay,
if
so
the
let me
Sox
ask you
fans
this
are gonna
question.
let that slide.
Let me ask you this. So Sox Fest 2017. I was there. Rick Hahn could have ran for mayor of Chicago and might have had a really good chance of winning. I mean, he was untouchable. Trading, Chris Sale, what the get back was, Adam Eaton. We're rebuilding. We've got this direction. Look at the barn, man. Look at everything that we've acquired in these few months, and look what we're probably going to do. We got Jose Quintana still, and these other moves. Like we look at this, and there was so much excitement. There was Ricky Renteria's in the house, and his whole introductory speech. I mean, it was exciting. It was absolutely exciting to have a direction. Now you're telling me, okay, let's just say it's a tear down. So they move Garrett Crochet and Luis Robert Jr. Those are the big moves, like in 2016. Now I know Adam Eaton's not in the same class as Crochet or Robert Jr., but he brought back some critical pieces, we thought at the time. Okay, and he
Yeah,
was
Dave
an asset.
Robertson was a big move for the White Sox.
And then so you got Chris Sale, that obviously up in that upper echelon of what we were getting back. You think people are going to be that excited for Chris Gatz when he lets Crochet and Robert go? Say Crochet, we wait till the offseason to let him go. Again, these are hypotheticals. I don't think fans are going to be as excited as they were in 2017 during that Sox Fest of like, okay, you got rid of more all-stars and we've got a long dark path that we don't know about. I don't think people are going to at all be hyped for that. I think there's going to be anger, and I think those are the type of moves we're going to see. I don't think they're bringing in premium talent in the offseason. I think it's more of, okay, we traded another guy and we got a bunch of prospects. You excited? Does that work for you guys? No. Hey, it's the '05 team. Let's all get excited for that.
Yeah, I mean, I could be 100% wrong. I do see your side. It's easy to go down that road because I'm trying not to, because I'm just as jaded as you are. If you guys haven't figured that out already, like I'm pretty vocal about it on this show and about how it's difficult to watch and even be part of the fandom right now. This fan base it's just tough. It's tough all around in Chicago right now. We really don't have much to lean on, but
Hey, Caleb Williams signed his contract, Danny.
that's
Watch out,
about
man.
it, man.
And
We
you
have
got
the
Hard
Bears.
Knocks coming up. Oh boy.
But
Watch out.
there's that feeling like, hey, the Bears have made some moves in the past and it kind of, blew up in our face as well too. So again, I'm excited, but I'm going to curb it to the point where I'm not going to get overly excited about it. But as far as the Sox go, I'm just trying to see, like, I keep going back to that statement of, I had to hire Chris Getz because I owe it to Sox fans to turn this thing around as quickly as possible. And if that's the case, the only way to do it is when they cut all this money off this roster and they go into the off season with a really low payroll, they're going to have to spend some somewhere. It's just absolutely going to have to happen. And, I'm sure that we're not going to go out and sign a major contract. We're not going to sign a Juan Soto. We're not going to sign an Aaron Judge. We're not going to sign a Bryce Harper type contract, right? We're going to go out but I'm okay with getting guys who, maybe can play some corner outfield spots that are 800 OPS guys, 750 OPS guys instead of 620 OPS guys, 540 OPS guys. You know what I mean? Maybe we get some middle infielders that might come up through the system and turn out to be awesome. Or maybe we get somebody who can come up and kind of be a stopgap that's decent, that isn't, Nicky Lopez or, Braden Shoemake. You know what I mean? I don't
Yeah,
know.
I think it takes the Sox to be aggressive because the Sox aren't the only team thinking that way. And there's teams that are going to be on the cusp of, hey, I only need a couple pieces here, and I think I'm built for October. The Sox have a lot of things that they were going to have to address, and would a player like that want to come to the White Sox on Jerry's terms? A lot of people mentioned to the chat tonight, it is always on Jerry's terms. I mean, they might spend money, but it's going to be the type of money Jerry wants to spend with his conditions. It's always on his path. And it all the apologists, I still can't understand. All the people that think he is doing a good job, and look how successful he's been. I just don't have, to each their. I can't even justify it. What is so frustrating is, as a Sox fan going into an off season, especially one like this that we anticipate, and you kind of know the limitations already. You already know, oh well, the Sox aren't going to go after those people. They're not going to be in those conversations. They're not going to have the money or the desire to sign those people, and there'll be excuses. So it's like you kind of check down, like a quarterback would check down their options. And it's like I got my first priority, I got my second, and then I'm checking down, and then I'm just throwing out into the flat because there's there's nothing in my range. So I just got to do something and dump it off. That's how it feels as a Sox fan. And I'm trying to be positive and just shake it off of, well, it's the White Sox way for Crochet to be traded and Luis Robert to be, dangled and seriously talked about in a trade. But when I really think about it, it just burns me. It burns me to go through this all over again. And Bob Nightingale had stuff last Sunday. I don't know if you saw it. The Padres recently made an offer to the White Sox for Crochet. That was dismissed.
They offered 4 guys that are in what was it, the MLB top 100 list, but all 4 of those guys suck this year.
Yeah.
So some of those guys are probably going to drop off that top 100 list. So I don't know. The Padres just don't have the same kind of system they did a couple of years ago, because the Padres have gone for it really, really hard and signed some really bad contracts and traded away a lot of prospects to bring in players that just didn't work out for them. So I don't know. The Padres can throw their hat in the ring. I just don't think they can put together a package the Sox are going to accept. And really quickly, I'm sorry, I don't want to. I know you're going down a path here, and I want you to hold that thought because I want to continue down that path. But I do have to address one thing in the chat.
Sure.
Because Clutch and Ian are going back and forth here about, one of the statements I made about, signing corner outfielders that have like 800, 850 OPSs.
Mm-hmm.
And they say that they've done it, but their OPSs drop, 200 points when they get here. And I know it feels like guys come here and they do worse. But when's the last time the Sox have signed an 800 OPS outfielder from outside the system? I'm just saying, we've gotten guys, but we haven't really gotten a guy. We've gotten guys that are, decent players, but we haven't gotten a guy who's like somebody who you can expect to produce on a daily basis, game in and game out.
Was Albert Bell? What was Albert Bell playing way back when in 1995?
Back to the 90s.
Well, 1995. I know he was a third baseman at one point. I think he eventually went to the outfield before he probably did a lot of DH. But it might be, I don't know. It could be Albert Bell.
I mean, I'm just saying.
Only 30 years ago.
Guys do come here and seem to fall off a cliff. I'll give you that. But none of those guys have been like real gamers. When's the last time we got a real
That's gamer? What I'm talking about. That's why I want some real gamers, man. I don't want the TW, a lot of hustle. There's a lot of heart in these guys. If, 12 things go right and they get healthy again, I think we might have something here. I want some studs, man. I just want some good baseball players. How about great baseball players? That is the troubling piece of thinking about where the Sox are. And you talk about a quick flip and a quick rebuild way at the beginning of the show. And sure, you can argue your way to that, but do you realistically think that can happen, Danny?
You had to throw realistically in there.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remain positive. I don't know if realistically anything's going to happen for this team until, I don't want to put this stink out there. I hate when people talk about, until Jerry dies or sells the team, but yeah, until he's gone. And then, I'm one of those people who always says, beware of the devil.
You say gone like he just like vanishes one day into thin air.
I don't know. I'm just saying, like the last, how shall I put this? I'm a fan of beware
I
the
see.
devil, and not
Yeah,
or whatever that saying is,
sure. No, you're on your right. Yeah. Okay.
beware the devil you don't know. So whoever replaces him, whoever takes his position, if his son Michael has been advised to sell the team, like who does he sell his shares to? I don't know. And is it going to get any better? I don't know. So we
Did with
gotta
the
hope.
Blackhawks.
Well, that was Rocky, and Dollar Bill. Boy, that guy had his mind set in stone. But Rocky came in and made some really good changes, and we got three in the span of 5 years, so that was
That's
fun. But
crazy to think about, by the way, when you really
it's probably
process
more
that.
difficult in doing hockey than it is in baseball, to be honest with you.
I mean, that's just,
Maybe not. Maybe not.
just to be able to, wow, sit back and, I hate to get, I am, I can be very nostalgic and the Bulls run and what I witnessed with the Hawks and, gosh, put it in perspective with when you see some horrible Bulls basketball and some rough Hawks hockey, as of late. You think, wow, man, like and there are fandoms, there are folks that go lifetimes,
Hey,
without seeing anything close to what we saw from two of the four major sports.
yeah. Well, it's it's like I said, it's just tough for anyone to be a fan in Chicago sports these days. So we got to hope for the best. I don't wish ill will upon anyone, but the only way I see things getting better for the White Sox, if they don't go out on that limb and spend a couple of dollars this year, well, then I guess we're just waiting for the departure of a one Jerry Reinsdorf before we can even hope for any kind of real change around here. Honestly.
What do you expect after the All-Star break? I think it's just going to be a who's going to be traded. It's the countdown. It's the big countdown. Over the next couple weeks until the deadline in late July, and that's all that's going to dominate as the Sox continue to spin their wheels and maybe take a look at a couple of guys in different positions or play some musical chairs with guys going from AAA to the bigs and back. What can we really look for here? Towards the end of the month.
My expectation is probably see the best White Sox lineups we've seen all season consistently, just because they're going to try to showcase every single player they feel like has value to get what they can in return. I think you may see some front office management of the dugout. I think Pedro's going to get overridden on some things. I think the front
Hmm.
office is going to be, it might not be obvious. Maybe it
Yeah.
will be. I don't
Yeah.
really know.
Sure.
But it's all about the trade deadline right
So
now.
that
The
whole
White Sox are
um,
probably the biggest sellers in baseball.
that whole talk of we don't compromise wins for development. It's going to be probably you're compromising wins for development and you're compromising wins for showcase. Because
It's really what it's going to come down to. I think you're just going to showcase anything that you have. We saw the other day Garrett Crochet had his innings limited because he came out and said that he would rather continue to pitch on a regular schedule, but with shortened outings than skip, starts for one or two or three at a time to
well,
limit
that's
those innings.
alarming to a team that wants to trade for him. No one
Well,
wants to
and
see that.
I think that was more of that's more of a White Sox thing, which again I don't think I agree with it because the guy's been cruising. He hasn't struggled at all. He's had some of his best outings, as the season's gone on. He looks stronger and better
He
as the
does.
season
Yeah.
goes on. Guy's just comfortable all the time. He's in cruise control. And I don't know if that was something that was maybe talked about in some of these meetings with these other teams that are making offers for him and their concerns with the mileage on him and stretching him out over the course of the season and him being available for the playoffs for a team that wants him this year. But I don't know if I agree with the way that's handled either. If you're looking to trade him and get the most value out of him, you got to be able to show that he can do the job and continue to do the job. But who knows what GMs are looking for on the other side of the table. So
Yeah.
it's a crapshoot either way. Your guess is as good as mine.
Yeah, it really takes two to tango. That's what
Look at
I
that.
forget. I forget
AL
about
wins the
that.
All-Star game. White Sox going to the World Series.
Yeah, there you go.
74 losses incoming
74
this
losses. A
this
little,
week.
yeah, that 74 is a magical number, folks. If you didn't listen to some of the earlier episodes way back when, Danny had a bullish prediction on wins. And you know what? I was like, I think I was around 65, which is just as insane as, 74 when you
Looking
think about
back,
things, maybe I was worth 63, 65, but I wasn't under 60. I was like, no way. That's god awful. That's like you almost have to just purposefully lose.
yeah, got to
And
give it to Ian and his crystal ball. He was in the 50s, I believe.
yeah, there you go. Yeah. And that's what is the record? What's the Mets have that, the 62 Mets? Is that right? Is it at 120 something losses?
Yeah, sounds about right.
So Sox are 17 games off of their kind of their path from last season, and in
Oh,
2023 they lost 101 games. So
you remember
uh,
how mad we were about that last year
yeah,
as a
well,
fan base?
Pat Hester brought it up to me on Sunday night at Good Guys Talk Back, which again, remember how mad we were at 81 and 81
Yeah,
and
yeah,
how again you think back, like we weren't supposed to be 81 and 81. We were supposed to be dominating. We were supposed to be getting right back there and winning the AL Central, which is why we were so aggravated with that mediocre play, which you should be as a fan base. That should be the expectation. You should always be expecting to be right up there competing. And when you had a division championship in 2021, you thought it was only going to get better in 2022, and we were just living in that limbo. And look, I know I don't know if this is the time to start bringing it up. I mean, do you look back and do you start making your apologies to Tony La Russa and say,
absolutely
wow,
not.
sorry, man. Um, sorry about that. Like
No,
you
I
were
still
able,
blame him for the fall. I really do. I think that he played an integral part in the demise of this team. Regardless of the record, and people want to point out that he was a 93 win manager his first season with the Sox, but yeah, you look at his first half, it was spectacular, and the second half fell apart. And if it wasn't for that hot start in the first half, if you take that second half team that year, they don't get anywhere close to 93 wins. So I put a lot of that stink that's been on this organization since then on him. I really
you would
do. And
say
maybe I'm wrong.
you would probably not bringing him back as a consultant.
No,
So you think
I would not have him anywhere near the team. And the fact that he is still around is, beyond me. But he's Jerry Reinsdorf's best bud. So
And
I had
that's
to
what a
find a
lot
place
of
for him.
people, if you have conversations with other baseball fans, or maybe they're in your family, or you've got coworkers, and they're from different fandoms, not necessarily the North Side, but all over baseball. And you might get those questions of like, what happened to you guys? Like how did
Oh,
this
there was a lot
fail?
of
Or
things that went wrong, but
and exactly. And when you start
he's a
peeling
part
all
of
the
it.
layers,
As Clutch points out.
it is troubling. I forgot to ask you this earlier, and I don't know if you know, or
Talking
maybe
about LaRue,
somebody.
so I got heater number
Uh,
3, by the way.
yeah, this is this is one of those episodes where we might have a half a pack.
No, no,
Hagen
no.
Hagen Smith, has Hagen Smith had Tommy John yet?
In high school.
See, Hagen Smith had Tommy John in high school.
As a
Okay,
high schooler, he had Tommy John, yes.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So, a lot of people say, well, he got it out of the way, but in this day and age, I mean, it feels like it was only like 10 years ago where like having Tommy John was like, oh, could be
Yeah.
a career ender, could be a long
Because I
road.
was going to say, if he hasn't had Tommy John yet, I mean, it's just a matter of time. Like that's how
Well,
it
and that's
goes
what I'm
these
getting
days.
at. I mean, these days,
Yeah.
guys are having 2
Yeah.
Tommy Johns
That's
and still coming back and pitching. So, like, I mean, a lot of guys in high school these days are having it preemptively to get it out of the way, but
if
I
you
don't
can
know
find
if
a
that's a
doctor
great
that'll do it.
idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there's money to be made out there. The doctors are definitely doing it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you're in if you're in an area that's a prominent, baseball city, the machines, the high school machines that obviously send kids to the premier colleges, I can imagine there's some money exchanged. It's just,
Absolutely.
just do it. Trust me, just do
Absolutely.
this. Because it's,
Yeah, but the second Tommy John is not out of the question these days. That used to be a big no-no, but technology and medical advancements these days, who knows, Nick? Maybe you and I'll get to live to see 150 one day. God, I hope not.
man, I, I
Somebody
just,
take my bullets from me before that happens.
yeah, I don't know. I got to be honest with you. After this draft week, I'm a little just I'm just confused. I'm a little. I think this month, really leading up to the deadline and then after, I'm going to be so critical, more so than I already am, because if you didn't get some premier bats, then you have to do it at the trade deadline. And do you have targets out there, Danny? Do you have teams that you're really looking at and saying, well, I like their crop of bats or what they've got in their system? Like who are some teams that can play ball with the Sox for Crochet?
Well, I mean, hate to state the obvious because it's been talked about a million times, but Baltimore definitely is the system that you want to get into, right? You want to get your hands in their pockets. Whether or not they'll be willing to come off their guys that are coveted is another story. But definitely the team you want to get involved with. I mean, I like some of the guys, some of the bats in the Mariners system. I wouldn't mind getting my hands on the Mariners, looking like they might be buyers as opposed to sellers. We could get into theirs. I'm not a big fan of the Padres, as I talked about earlier. Dodgers threw their hat in the ring early, and we'll see if they say they are not out of the ring, even though their first offer was declined. I'd like to see what kind of package they put together a second time around. There are some interesting bats there. Uh, I will go the other direction and say I do not want to see a Yankees deal
Hmm.
because, as we all know, Yankees prospects are all overhyped, and I really don't think their farm system is all that great to begin with. Anyway, some people might say differently, but again, it's the Yankees. So yeah, I mean, there's a handful of teams out there that I think the Whites that can offer something, but I'm sticking to my guns. Like I, I'm, I'm only 50-50 on a Garrett Crochet deal just because, like I said before, the 50-50 is kind of a big difference for me too, big turn because just a couple weeks ago I was saying I don't see him going anywhere. I don't think anybody's going to offer the package. This draft and the White Sox uh, strategy in the draft tells me that they are planning on it. And Bob Nightingale, just kind of reiterating over and over again that this is going to be a thing. And now you've got some of the MLB network guys and some of the athletic guys jumping in on that train, all respected for, their opinions and being insiders. I think he's going to go. And, I hate to see it happen, but again, I'm still 50-50. I don't know if anybody's really going to put together the package. And if the White Sox do trade him, I just hope they don't do it just to do it.
Well, that is the worry. I think that was the worry with Dylan Cease is the gamble, the risk. Do you allow him to go in season? Does a team that wants Dylan Cease want Dylan Cease to go in the season in a White Sox uniform? Like I want to get him in our system, in our organization right away. I don't even want him in your world for a couple months. I just want to start the season clean. So that's where it's, hey, if you think you're not going to get anything better,
You mean
that's the
Crochet,
gamble.
right? Are you actually
Well,
going back to
Cease
the two
back,
strings?
back Cease in the spring. Now it is the
Okay.
crochet thing. It's you know what every organization has. You now know what they've drafted and what's in their system and everything like that. So crochet pitching in the All-Star game, he did just fine for himself, and I just
He
I
gave up one hit, but nothing
I will
crazy.
say pretty much in closing, I think now it's almost a foregone conclusion that he's going to be gone because in my mind of who they drafted. And
Yeah, everything says that that's the case, and that's why the only reason I stand at 50-50 is when they put it out there so strongly and they're so staunch in this idea that he's going to be gone, my concern is the return. Because I think other teams are going to say, oh, well, they really want to get rid of this guy. They don't want him to come back. They really want to bolster their system. They might try to pull the wool over Chris Getz's eyes, especially as a first-year GM.
but that message, true, and I agree with that. But there are a lot of teams though that are going to be looking at that and saying, well, we might be able to. I don't say a lot, but there's more than just one, right? That kind of have the prospects that could kind of maybe make some things interesting. And that is to create, more fire for the bidding war, perhaps. And if he's definitely going, well, I'm not going to just try to pry. The Sox are obviously listening. So, and the fact that it was leaked that the Dodgers, the Padres, okay, it's out there publicly that we're getting other bids. Get your best offer ready, your best and final. You only have a couple more weeks now. We intend to trade, and we're serious about this. It just feels like it. That's all I have going for me with
Yeah,
that.
no, it does. It does. It feels like it's going in that direction. It worries me a little bit.
Everything worries me. I'm a White Sox fan.
Well, I mean, that's that.
Yeah,
You could stop right there.
I
I'm a White Sox fan.
I think this has been a great therapy session, Danny. I think we might pull the plug on it right now. Can't thank the folks enough in the chat. What an awesome chat this was.
Yeah, and I'll apologize really quickly. I know I kind of stammered on a little bit tonight, but there are so many thoughts flowing
There's a
through my
lot.
head with the deadline
No,
and the draft. So I'm trying to get it all out there without being too. I don't know. I pulled off the what Ian says the micro machines guy when he does the speed read. I was a little chatty Cathy tonight, so I apologize, guys.
that is, there's nothing to apologize about. We're all just trying to do our best here. This is a workshop. This is a safe place where we can just try to find, a common ground and figure out what's the root of all problems. Which obviously we all hate John Schriffen and Jerry Reinsdorf. That's kind of where we always, I think we can settle at and some
Yeah,
common
I don't
theme,
hate him.
but. No, of course not at all. But again, thank you so much for everybody jumping in. Great conversations, great thoughts, great ideas. With a team that's got 71 losses heading into the All-Star break, it means a lot for you to spend your Tuesday night joining us as we chop all things up White Sox. So for Danny Miller, he's on at Danny Miller FS. I am Nick Morawski at Nick_GGTB. This is the MLB
Smash that
centric.
like.
Yeah, smash that. Subscribe,
Share.
pass it along. We are the MLB centric podcast for the Future Sox world. Sox are on that all-star break, as all MLB teams are. And we'll see what our beloved White Sox have in store after the break. For Danny Miller, I'm Nick Morawski. Until next time, go Sox.